What is chemo? Let's talk about it. But first, hi, I'm Craig, the Mad Bioengineer. Chemo, or chemotherapy, are drugs used to treat cancer, and they all work the same way. They interfere with the cell cycle, but they do it in different ways. The cell cycle is normally that thing that all cells have to go through to grow and divide, but in cancer, that process is unregulated, so the cells can continuously grow and divide out of control. Since cancer cells are rapidly growing and dividing and really metabolically active, chemo has a significant impact on them compared to normal cells. Chemo drugs are grouped by how they work. The first group is something called alkylating agents. They add alkyl groups directly to the DNA, and that prevents the cell from being able to read the DNA. And when cells can't read their DNA to do things like do the normal functions of a cell, they just die. Another group of chemo drugs is called antimetabolites. They mimic the DNA or RNA bases, like, your ATCG. So what happens is the cell tries to incorporate these antimetabolites into its DNA, and these drugs are different enough so that it doesn't allow DNA synthesis to occur. It can't add on the next letter in the chain of DNA, and the cell dies that way. Others are kind of like anti-tumor antibiotics, like doxorubicin, for example. These bind to DNA and prevent the enzymes or protein machinery inside of your cells from being able to read your DNA to copy it. And then there are some that are derived from plants, specifically a compound called plant alkaloids. And this group is called topoisomerase inhibitors. Topoisomerases, what they normally do is help unravel your DNA so your cells can read it. To unravel your DNA, they make little cuts. But what these inhibitors do is prevent those cuts from being fixed. And then your DNA in the cancer cell builds up all these little cuts and nicks. And that is what ends the cell. And there's another group of plant-based drugs that interfere with the last step of the cell cycle called mitosis, where the cell actually divides its DNA and then begins splitting. This is a really simplified video talking about all the different drugs. But under each of these different groups, there's numerous drugs for each of these categories. And this doesn't even begin to cover all the other types of drugs that are being developed to treat cancer, like targeted therapies or immunotherapies. I could do a whole separate video on each of those different topics. Let me know if you want a video on those topics, actually. This is the Mad Bioengineer, signing off.